I used to be the guy who hit snooze until noon, living off takeout and energy drinks, and spending most days on the couch with a controller in my hand, overweight, jobless, and trapped under my dad's roof, where every disagreement with my aggressive, angry father ended in shouting matches that left me feeling small. My mornings blurred into afternoons, my afternoons into nights. I wore the same sweatpants for days, half-heartedly telling myself I'd start tomorrow. My social calendar consisted of Facebook notifications and the distant laughter of friends I no longer saw. Anxiety gnawed at me constantly, the shame of being stuck, the fear that I'd never change, the desperate hope that something, anything, would snap me out of this spiral. Then one restless night, scrolling through YouTube rabbit holes, I stumbled upon a video clip of David Goggins describing his 40% rule. The intensity in his eyes, the urgency in his voice, struck a chord in me I didn't know still existed. Minutes later, I ordered his memoir, Can't Hurt Me, published October 11, 2018. When it arrived a few days later, its cover, simple, unadorned, felt like a challenge. As I read about Goggins' own hellish childhood, born February 17, 1975, in Buffalo, New York, enduring relentless physical and emotional abuse from his father, a childhood marred by racism and poverty, I saw how trauma can warp your sense of worth, just like it had mine. Page after page, I recognized echoes of my own insecurities. The mocking voice that told me I'd never amount to anything, the ache of carrying my father's disapproval like a chain around my neck. The story of how Goggins shed 106 pounds in under 3 months to qualify for Navy SEAL training hung in my mind like a neon sign. I realized discipline could be learned, not just inherited. I marked a date on my phone, 6 months from today, and vowed to run a marathon. The next morning my alarm blared at 5 a.m. My body protested every fiber of its being, but I got up. I laced my shoes in the dark, stepped onto the dewy grass outside, and gingerly jogged a block. Then 2. Then 4. Panting so hard I thought my lungs would implode. Every step felt like punishment, but I remembered Goggins' words. When your mind screams quit, you've only tapped 4/10 of your potential. Running became my confession and my redemption. I carried a small notebook, scribbling my fears before each run. I'm too slow. I'm too heavy. What if I fail? And checked them off one by one as I logged miles. 3 kilometers, then 5, then 10. Friends and co-workers watched in disbelief as my evening couch potato persona morphed into someone who craved the ache in his muscles, the sting of cold air in his lungs, the sensation of blood humming beneath his skin. My dad's taunts, "You'll never last. Why bother?" buzzed in my head like angry flies, but instead of swatting them away, I focused them like fuel. Pain was no longer my enemy, but the forge of my new self. At work, I was still floundering, gig after gig, interview after interview gone nowhere. But with every marathon training cycle I completed, my confidence swelled. I learned to break down intimidating tasks into small, doable chunks. Write 1 cover letter today, run 1 extra kilometer tomorrow, study 1 new programming concept this evening. My resilience became my resume. 6 months after finishing my first marathon, 42.2 kilometers of fire and disbelief, I crossed the finish line of my second, then my third, each time shaving minutes off my personal best. When I read how Goggins conquered the 240-mile Moab 240 in 62:21:29, second place overall, Masters winner, course record, I knew ultra running was the next horizon. I signed up for a local 50-mile event, terrified but exhilarated. Training for ultras demanded more than willpower. It forced me to understand my body. I learned about nutrition, balancing electrolytes, carbs, fats, and experimented with gels and powders until I found what my stomach could tolerate at mile 50. I built mental tools too, mantras for the wall of exhaustion, visualizations of breaking through dawn's first light when the world still slept. In 2020, I tackled 2 ultras tracked on DOV, totaling over 460 kilometers between them. I nearly puked under a desert sun, hiked through torrential rain, and once, in the middle of a forest, burst into tears at how far I'd come from that couch. Meanwhile, my professional life began to shift. I still remembered the tremor in my voice when I first landed a stable job at a tech firm, my eyes darting around the conference room as if ready to bolt, But as I shared stories of overcoming physical pain, interviewers leaned in. They saw a pattern. I overcame self-doubt by running into it head first. I rebuilt my resume to highlight grit. Pages of proof that I'd planned and executed multi-month training schedules, then crossed finish lines in the dead of night. I negotiated a salary I'd never dared ask for before. Suddenly, I was the candidate that companies wanted. I also discovered a passion for coaching. Friends began asking me to help them train for their first 5K. One by one, they signed up for my 30-day running challenges, personalized training plans sent each morning, accountability texts when they skipped runs, celebration videos when they hit milestones. I watched them, once out of shape and doubting themselves, transform into people who ran with heads held high. The side hustle pulled in around $200 a day on average. Money I used to buy new gear, donate to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, and occasionally treat myself to a real meal instead of ramen and energy drinks. In love, I found another revelation. A woman I met at a local trail cleanup saw me collecting trash on my recovery day. She asked why I ran so much. I told her about Goggins, about learning to be comfortable with discomfort, about fighting to believe I was worthy. She told me, my conviction was contagious. Our first date was a sunrise run along the fjord, the water glowing like glass. We talked about our scars, emotional and physical, and how we chose to mold them into strengths. Today, we train together, sometimes racing, sometimes walking hand in hand, sharing podcasts and long silences that feel like home. Now, every morning I wake before dawn, pounding pavement while my old demons sleep. My old playlist of gaming soundtracks has been replaced by motivational speeches and contemplative instrumentals. I track my rest with a wearable device and schedule deliberate days off to stretch, meditate, and connect with friends. When my body whispers, enough, I reply, not yet, because I know I still have at least 60% more to give. David Goggins didn't wave a magic wand over my life. He simply illuminated what I was capable of when I refused to quit. And so each sunrise run is both a tribute and a declaration that greatness isn't gifted, it's forged in discomfort, in choice, and in the relentless pursuit of who we can become.